right. Good morning, everybody. Look at my microphone. It kind of goes from side to side. Oh, look at it, all on its own. It's got a swing to it. Huh? How do you like that? All right, everybody. Let's get your day going, shall we? Shall we start off our Tuesday morning properly and in the right fashion?
Let's.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we got an incredible show for you today. We got JJ Cornish popping in for a little African analysis. And let me just figure out why this camera's got me off to the side like that. And then we've also got Dion Chang.
Dion Chang.
Dion Chang is awesome because he is one of the only people in South Africa who does what he does.
Mm.
He's a futurist.
Yeah.
But he runs a company which does the most incredible work on what the next trend might be.
Yeah.
And they really are at the forefront of kind of figuring out where we're headed. And I love that. I love looking forward, not so keen on looking back. It's just, especially in this country, it just leads to people sitting around twiddling their
thumbs.
Like that, like our president did.
We still have one of those?
We have a president.
On paper?
Yeah. So there was a cabinet reshuffle last night that you couldn't, the media were all more excited about it than anything else. But when it actually happened, I didn't watch it. I don't know about you.
I don't know anyone who did. I just waited for the updates because I think I've got trauma towards the government, and anything they do, I'm like, and I'm like, so let me just take a step back, wait for results, and keep it moving, because I know they're just going to put on a show and disappoint me again, my banner. I just don't want to get hurt. So, yeah. But yeah, I heard they did do some shuffling. Somebody rolled the dice here and there, which is...
So, all right. So we've got Paul Mashatile as deputy president. Like nobody knew that was going to happen.
That's so predictable.
Why did he even take so long to even get to this point? I'm going to go through this quickly because it's really not that interesting. And there's no surprises here. It's all ANC cadres who we've seen before. Nothing new.
Yep.
No original thinking. These guys are so bankrupt of ideas, which is why I would rather spend the morning talking to Dion Chang, frankly. If the president offered me an interview this morning, I wouldn't want it.
We'd be like, no, respectfully,
it's okay.
No.
All right, so let me put this picture up here because you're not going to... just...
Who do we have?
God, this is courtesy of the Mail and Guardian, who normally I wouldn't use for fire starting. But here we go. They've also... At least they're doing something, right?
Sure. Okay.
Right. So Paul Mashatile is the deputy president. Woo!
Surprise.
Going to be amazing. Under him, everything will change.
Oh.
This Kane Chavani, now I think she's in the top 6 now, isn't she? I'm not sure. Anyway, she's now the minister in the presidency.
Yawn.
Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. Now, again, this woman has been in the cabinet since Nelson Mandela was president.
Bro, isn't she like one of the longest standing
She has
cadres?
been in the cabinet since 1994.
And
if this isn't sheltered employment, I don't know what is. She must be very, very tired now.
Yeah, surely. Resign, my sister, resign.
And ma'am, I've written 1 or 2 sympathetic letters and blogs about Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, especially after everyone climbed into her for the inarguably stupid liquor ban and croc shoe ban and cigarette ban during COVID. She's just completely incompetent. She's like a ham-handed... She's just bad at everything.
No, she's not great, Gareth.
She's really not.
She's not.
And, I think she probably means well, as I wrote in that... I thought I was being really kind in that blog because everybody was climbing into her. And I thought, here's an old lady. Let's have some respect.
Sure.
Here's an old lady. She's trying to do her best. She doesn't really know what to do because she's not capable of making better decisions.
She's not. But at the point where you realize,
for fuck's sake, she chose to marry Jacob Zuma once. She has no decision making.
Let it go. It's clearly not her strength to make decisions. I don't know if her track record speaks any growth, any power. I haven't seen anything that I can say, wow, Dr. Dlamini-Zuma, you took women, youth, and persons with disabilities to a higher level. It's literally just like, well, she's been doing it, let her keep doing it until she kicks the bucket.
All right, so they're going to let her keep working in government, clearly, until she kicks the bucket.
Yeah.
This is how it works now. So, good luck to her. She's in charge of the incredibly brilliant and patronizing portfolio, which lumps you, Lebang, whether you liked it or not, with children and people with disabilities.
Look, I'm in that category, but do something for me.
Are you a children?
I am a woman. It's women, youth.
But why do they put women, youth, and people with disability? Isn't that a bit like...
It's balls. It's obviously nonsense. But here it is. We just like everybody else, we just group them together at the bottom of the list.
I'm so sick of this performative, where they're trying like, they don't care about women and people with disabilities.
They
and
haven't
children.
for years.
Women are still, there's gender-based violence keeps going up.
Sure.
Women are not given any kind of power in rural communities.
There's no
women are still the ones holding up society because men have absconded from their duties.
Sure.
Let's not even talk about it. But
they've done nothing for us.
But don't worry. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma's there now. She'll fix this.
I feel so much better. Something's actually going to happen now.
I mean, I don't know why she's been in the highest echelons of government, right? Under Thabo Mbeki, she was his big buddy. She was hugely influential. She was Minister of Foreign Affairs then. Now she's been demoted to this shitty, stupid portfolio. Why doesn't she have the pride? Because you'd think someone who'd been in government for this long, someone who, she's not unintelligent, she's just incompetent. She should have said to them, you know what, Cyril, I don't need this. I mean, didn't she say as much a while ago? Didn't she say a little while ago something about like, well, if Cyril's going to lead things, because she ran against him, remember, famously at Nazareth. She should have had the gumption, the self-assuredness to go, nah.
Actually,
I don't need
politely would not take this. Let us find somebody that can run this portfolio and actually do something to add value to the people that we have clumped together in this group. Because
stupid portfolio.
With her being at the forefront of it, it's almost literally just like a throwaway. She's proven to not be able to do much.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, well, because we don't care about this portfolio as much as we should, we're just going to put her as the face or the poster child and we'll keep it moving.
No, well, really, it's not even about the people in that portfolio. It's just about giving her a job. They need to,
at this stage,
they need to hand out jobs.
They need to keep her there. Because
the ANC is one big sheltered employment scheme. That's all it is. All right. So then we've got two Ramagopas. Let it never be said that nepotism doesn't run in the ANC's veins. Okay, there's Dr. Khotsienso Ramagopa, he hasn't been in government before. He's our Minister of Electricity now.
Of Electricity, yeah.
Oh my God.
I wonder.
And then I don't know if M. Ramagopa is Gwen or if M is Gwen and Khotsienso's daughter. Angaz.
But you know how it is, like in the community. We may have the same surname, but I mean, we may not be related.
No, these Ramagopas are all related. They're from Pretoria.
Sure.
Yeah, I know them. Yeah, Gwen was, she was very powerful and influential in Pretoria for a while.
Mantikwe Ramagopa.
Okay, check who the parents are.
Parents. Okay. Yeah, see the way it's definitely Dr. Gwen. Yeah.
There we go.
Correct. ANC Treasurer General.
So basically, jobs for family, jobs for pals. And now she's in charge of planning, monitoring, and evaluation. The three things that we know don't get done. So basically, she's got the easiest job in the world. She arrives at work, she sits and sharpens pencils, sits in meetings which nobody seems to know what the purpose of is. And then she goes home in the evening, collects a fat salary at the end of the month.
Must be so nice. Sure.
Mondli Gungubele, who seems like he's more or less competent. I mean, I've certainly not heard the worst things about Mondli Gungubele, but communications, digital technology, so that includes the SABC.
Sure.
I mean, what a horrible portfolio, but it's his problem, not ours. Tinka Dimeng is now in charge of cooperative governance and traditional affairs. That's always the role that they give someone who's to like figure out shit between traditional leaders.
Oh yes, and
Parliament.
And Parliament, yes.
And it's a disaster.
Of course it is.
You've got competing interests.
Sure.
Democracy doesn't always gel with monarchy. You know, it's just a horrible job.
It's messy.
Don't expect anything to happen there. Now, public services and administration is actually kind of important. This is how public servants are paid, public pensions, all of that stuff. And it's been given to Nokolo Kivit, who was a former premier of the Eastern Cape, as far as I understand. And I'm pulling all of this from memory because these people have been around that long.
Sure.
Okay. So Nokolo Kivit was, first of all, she is the size of 3 football fields.
Oh, my word.
And the last time I saw her in person, she had a plate of food on her lap or on her breasts, as the case may be, and she was shoveling it in. at an event in the Eastern Cape that I was emceeing at or something.
It's definitely somebody's mother.
Well, she's also supposedly a cabinet minister now. So she's been pushed up the ranks. God bless the people who had to push her up those ranks because they must be exhausted. Then there's Sihle Zikalala, who's finally got out of the provincial government of KZN, and now he's in public works and infrastructure. So if things aren't working in government buildings,
he's the guy.
He's the guy. But I guarantee you nothing will, because nothing works in KZN anymore.
Anyway, sure.
He's in charge there for a while. Zizi Kodwa has finally been moved into sports, arts and culture from a spokesperson role and then eventually some lower ministry. So good for Zizi, although I also question his competence. Patricia de Lille, who's proven herself to be absolutely pointless, she was brought in because she had some minority party thing. And really what they've done is they've just kind of told her to shut up about the arms deal and about corruption. And she has, because now she's got a cushy government job.
Sure.
So Patricia de Lille proving that even the most ardent supporter of moves against corruption, all they need to do is be given a little bit of a cabinet job and then they shut the hell up. I mean, when last did you hear Patricia mouthing off about anything?
Yeah, I'm surprised that she's still in the cut. She has really fought for her role. Hey, she's like,
been neutered.
I'm not going anywhere. You will see me. But it seems like they've bought her, as you're saying. Like, shush, here, sit here and look pretty.
And then
this is what it feels like.
Whoever S. Chikunga is she's now in charge of transport. So great for that.
I'm curious, and I see somebody in the comments is also asking about where Peggy Cele and the Minister of Police lies in this cabinet shuffle. Does this mean he's still there?
I don't know. But here's the thing. Like, it doesn't matter because none of these people are doing their jobs.
Sure.
None of these people are particularly qualified or competent in any way. It's like basically you and your friends deciding what position you're going to play in the football team when you're playing for fun. You know, like if you're playing against some other bunch of guys and you're all on holiday, or you're playing, let's say, beach volleyball. That's a better,
I was about to say,
it's not as serious as football even. It's beach volleyball. So what you do is you say to your mates, you know what? It doesn't matter that you have no ability to run. It doesn't matter that you are way older than the rest of us. It doesn't matter that you are extremely weak and thin. We're just going to, everybody come. We're basically going to give everyone, it's because it's all for fun.
Yeah.
And this comes from bad ideology and it comes from a lack of imagination. So Cyril Ramaphosa continues to disappoint us and show us that he's just a creature of the sheltered employment regime known as the ANC. And if anybody expected anything better than this, then you are a moron. You probably work for the media. You probably work for News 24 or the Independent Online or ENCA or one of those. You probably work for one of them because you were sitting there going, this is going to change everything.
Yeah,
because they're those people.
Right? Yeah, no, they exist. But I truly think that, and what is sad is that nobody had any major expectations. And to say that so confidently with my chest is just a reflection of how low the bar is.
They pretended to, though. Some people pretended to.
A tweet there.
Tonight, I mean, I saw a thing before I went to sleep. I was so tired last night. I went to sleep about 8. And I knew the president was meant to be on it around then. But I wanted to sleep. And to prioritize sleep over the president's speech, you must know how unimportant he is to me. Like, because I could have stayed up half an hour, but then I saw, as I was going to sleep, you go through your phone, and I saw someone said, "Oh no, it's been moved to 8:30 or whatever," and I was like, "Oh, here we go again." He can't even
stick to the time.
He can't even be there on time now.
It's that anxiety I was telling you about. Like, we've been here before with the ends. We've been here before with the government. Those freaking family meetings during lockdown. Like, I had so much anxiety from that.
It's so embarrassing, Lebang. I mean,
yeah.
Like if this was my own family and they couldn't arrive on time for a family lunch,
dude,
I would lose my mind. It's so bad. Anyway, guys, I don't know how to explain this to you other than to say we're very lucky that we live in a country where nothing works because you can do what you want. So
clearly,
what I'd like to advise everybody, because you're probably feeling a little despondent if you had your hopes up about Cyril, as so many people have every time that man has come on TV and every time he's been just underwhelming. Everything about his cabinet is underwhelming. There's not one minister who's performed beyond our expectations. Not one. And we have a cabinet that's bigger than the cabinet of any country in the world. You know that?
But everybody there just sucks. Like nobody, it's almost like they're not qualified to do what they're supposed to be doing.
No.
How do they get put into these positions over and over and over again?
They're not even not qualified. That would be fine because you can find people who are talented but don't have a degree.
Sure.
Right. And I would rather hire those people.
Agreed.
But it's not that they're not qualified. It's that they're not competent. It's like
that's maybe worse.
It's like here's a nail and here's a hammer and they're hitting over here because they just don't know how to.
Just don't know.
They're totally out of their depth, right?
They have no cooking clue.
The infants are in charge of the nursery school. Anyway, I mean, listen, I do love it because you can look after yourself. Many poor people in this country know this already. You're on your own, right? The people in rural communities all over South Africa are looking to themselves. They've made wells.
Sure.
They've
put in boreholes.
Yeah. They've got their own firewood because they know they're not going to have warmth this winter and that kind of thing. They're doing what they can. And people who have the means are installing solar and are getting off the grid and all of that stuff because we can't depend on these guys anymore. The danger for them is that the less we depend on them, the less important they are, the less we will be likely to give them any credence or money or resources or time.
But Gareth, I feel like I hear this all the time where everyone's like, I'm so fed up of the ANC, da-da-da-da-da. Come voting day, how does the ANC continue to get the majority vote or at the very least remain in power? Because this is the period where we sit and list. Oh, they left us alone. We're on our own. We're doing this, which on one end is great because there's the opportunity to do you and you're not dependent on the ANC. But screw that because they have a job. They have to do certain things. When it comes to the polls, people just vote for the ANC.
Well,
it's rather the devil we know.
No, but also, like, you know, Lebang, there are people who just are dyed in the wool, and maybe a lot of them are like Patricia. They just depend on it for their job. So a lot of people who work in government, for example, just they realize if they vote for anyone but the ANC, they're out of a job, right? So, and maybe that's not even true, but they think that. There are a lot of old people who go, these are the guys who liberated us.
Sure.
So, and I'm not explaining it away. Like, it's still stupid, but
quite.
But you know, it's like a friend of mine was telling me the other day, her granny is like an old Portuguese lady. She's in her 90s. And this lady is just an old school bigot. She doesn't like gay people, doesn't like black people. She's just an old school bigot. And she's in her 90s. Do any of us want to spend our time and effort trying to change her in her 90s?
Nah, it's over.
It's like it's a big waste of energy.
Over. It's what Muzi said last time.
Let the old lady live out her life.
Sure.
She can say horrible things about black people and gay people. It's not our problem, right?
Sure, she can just keep it moving because the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
But for the young people who are still at least having 20, 30, 40 years that you can see yourself being here, think now for then. Put your vote in. But don't let it be, well, rather the devil we know, the ANC is better than the what. Look, it's tough. Look, let's be honest, Gareth. The voting pool isn't, it's not looking very promising with regards to options. I mean, it's looking like at this stage we can just pick a name out of a hat and just hope it's not the ANC. And then say, well, at least I'm voting. You know what I'm saying?
Ryan is pressuring the hell out of me here. He's like, we've got to do some phone calls today because we didn't do any yesterday. So he's...
let's do phone calls.
So we'll do some phone calls today. You know what the number is, 083-295-5769. And you can call us right now and we'll put you on. You can argue with me and Lebang if you disagree with us. You can tell us where we're wrong. And maybe if you're one of these ministers who's just been appointed, you could tell us why you think you're going to do a great job.
Sure. Prove us wrong.
Prove us wrong.
Paul Mashatile, call us right now.
Wouldn't you love anything more than to see these guys actually do their job? Hey, good morning. What's up?
Morning.
What's happening? Hang on. Let me just get them on here. Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, how's it?
Who's this?
Yo, this is Musiwa. Andrew. Got a couple of names, though. I'm not going to say all of them.
Musiwa, Andrew, plus many more.
Musiwa, what do you have to say?
Yeah.
Are you excited about these cabinet appointments?
Man, the problem I have is that my Facebook is flooded with people talking about, let's give ANC another chance. I'm like, guys, come on.
No.
Actually, they don't. No, they don't want it to get better. So I don't know. I'm gonna move to Mars or something. I don't know.
Dude, Monsieur, I'm guessing you're Sutu. Were you from the Free State?
Now I'm from a small town called Aliwal North. I'm not even sure that you guys heard of it.
That sounds
But if you
familiar.
have,
Aliwal North. Yeah, I mean, there's like a population of about 400 people, right? It's tiny.
there's no way, bro. Like, there's no way. There's a lot of people.
I feel
There's a lot of people here.
I feel like definitely
a lot of
Facebook people are the problem. Facebook people
Yeah.
must be stopped. Y'all are living in the past. Like you can't still.
They just don't wanna.
Hey,
They don't wanna. But
So-
they're complaining.
Mosiwa, tell me, what do you do in Aliwal North?
I'm a music guy.
Oh, wow.
I do music.
Tell
I've
me
kinda given up in looking for a job and whatnot.
what kind of
That
music
doesn't
though,
work.
dude? I mean, we don't play any music, but I'd offer to play it if you had any. What kind of music do you make?
Oh, all types of music, actually, because I'm partly a producer and we do
nice.
visual arts and all of that. Actually, we did this because we realized that SA and qualifications and jobs, that actually doesn't work.
Yeah.
Education is not to success. It is not.
Well,
it is not.
you see, this is like a big thing. I remember Nelson Mandela saying education is the key, right? And he was right. But I mean, like, what we should have started with is educating his cabinet. And maybe we'd be somewhere, you know?
It definitely was the key at some point, and then they shifted the goalpost and said, "Oh, well, now everybody's got qualifications, and now it's not about that; it's about connections." It was at some point.
So you don't have a university degree, huh?
Sorry?
You don't have a university degree.
I have an IT degree, and it hasn't worked ever since I got it.
Yeah, you see, I studied law. I never got my degree, and I don't regret that for a second. I think it was good to like have the experience of university. I had to pay back my parents for everything. I was lucky that my parents could send me there in the first place, which a lot of people
Sad
can't.
story.
But you see the stuff going on at Wits
Send
right
an
now.
email to your school.
Yeah. What's that?
I was saying, send an email to your school and tell them it didn't work. Sorry, refund.
I don't think Tux cares that Gareth dropped out.
So yesterday we had this.
I'll just sabotage their whole school system and tell the kids that this thing doesn't work.
Well,
you know what? For the thing is,
you've actually proven it.
For some of them, it does. For very few of them, this is all that they've got. And very few that are academically driven, it'll work for them. The rest of us who aren't, all the way there, who are maybe more creative or who have better, experience with our hands,
so
it won't be the answer.
Lebang makes a good point. But yesterday, Monsieur, on the show, and I see this clip is going viral. There's like 80,000 people who've already seen it on TikTok, which is not even that many. But, for me to be quoted by someone else and then misquoted. So someone sent me a screenshot yesterday of this, which it just amazes me, right? So from someone on social media who's not me, and they're saying basically that, here it is, Gareth Cliff says tertiary education must be reserved for those who can afford it. I'm paraphrasing. Your thoughts. Now, first of all, I never said tertiary education must be reserved for those who can afford it. I said tertiary education is often a waste of time, which is what you and me and Lebang are saying this morning, right? Okay, so I'm not saying it's always a waste of time.
Yeah.
We definitely need scientists, we need engineers, we need doctors, we need less lawyers. I don't think we need more of those.
Yeah, we've got enough.
But
those liars.
But these people who go to university and they think that is going to be the key to them getting ahead. And in this country, we need plumbers, we need electricians.
Yeah.
Electricians. How many people I know who are making cash right now?
Big banks
out of setting up even tiny little solar installations, like one little panel to keep a light going.
Basic services, essentially. But there's so much
they don't need a university degree. They need to do some training.
Exactly.
But not a university degree. And usually apprenticeships and that kind of thing, which we don't do anymore either, because we got rid of. Remember, we used to have technicons?
Yes.
We got rid of those because the ANC thought better of it, right? Anyway, I just want to.
These kids figured it out.
I just want to clear up here, because I know I'm going to get misquoted on this, and it's going to become a big story. I'm just predicting this now. Gareth Cliff says tertiary education should be reserved for those who can afford it. That is not what I said at all. That is a complete misquote. It's not. That person said I'm paraphrasing, but they're not even paraphrasing. They're just completely misquoting me.
Yeah.
I also and I also said that I think that university is way too expensive, which is true.
Yeah. Yeah.
They've pushed up the prices there because there's a huge demand and very small supply.
Yeah.
So that is a big problem. And the other thing is, I don't have children, right? And I'm not paying for your children to go to university. I should not have to pay that part of my taxes. The education budget, I shouldn't be paying for that at all because I'm not putting anyone through education. Now I know that sounds very unfair, but I do not have children, and I'm not paying for Lebang's. Poor Lebang has 5 of them to put through university.
And I don't expect anybody to help me with paying for my kids' fees. I'm going to work my ass off and put them in school myself. It's my kids. Nobody else's responsibility. But the problem here is that school has been positioned as the only answer. That is the problem that we're currently facing. Back in the day when our parents were still young, that they had very limited options. And for them, it was the only answer that if at the very least I can get an education, then I'll have an opportunity.
Do you know what I call school lately?
Tell me.
Slave breeding.
Ooh, you're going to get into big trouble
for
that. You're going to misquote you. You think I've been paraphrased. Wait till they hear you.
They don't know. Do you know how far Aliwal North is? They'll never find me.
They'll find you. They will find you.
I'm deep in the bundles, bro. Like, they'll never, ever find
So, all right. Who do you think, if Cyril, what could he have done yesterday? I'm trying to be devil's advocate here, right? Mm-hmm. What could he have done to have impressed you yesterday? If he'd fired 3/4 of these people and said, you know what? I'm hiring some of the best people in business, or I'm hiring some of the best people in academia even, because there's some of those people who'd be very good right now.
Yeah.
What would impress you? Think about this. Would you even want to be impressed by a person who doesn't even impress his own family at this point? I mean, there's nothing impressive. You can't expect somebody to impress you who doesn't impress at all. Never impress. Okay, what has he impressed? Who has he impressed? What has he done that is impressive that I can say? Maybe he'll impress us this time. Okay, what else? What is impressive? What is?
So Lunga in the comments says, I'm speaking from a privileged background. But what do you, first of all, Lunga, what do you know about my background when you say that? I had to pay for my own university. Okay, I had to pay that off. I spent the first 4 years of my working career and working for other people to pay that off. So, I mean, show me where. I mean, obviously my parents could pay in advance, right? Which is that's privilege. I get that. But I never got the degree, so they
squandered.
They squandered their money. They wasted they put their money into a bad resource.
Yeah,
with me.
That was not an investment.
The law degree. So, again, like I have to ask, what difference does that make? Why are we? No matter what I'm coming at it from, why are we doing this to kids now? Why are we forcing them to become this mold of person?
There has to be other avenues. There has to be other things that are positioned and made fashionable at a younger stage. From primary already, I want to see entrepreneurship classes. I want to see other means of living life versus school and school only. Because unfortunately, what that does again is that if you are not an academic, if you are not truly in it, like if that is not your strength,
it's not for everybody, right?
You can't put slap a mass method on children across the globe and say, well, this is how you're all going to learn.
I want to ask you something. You got.
You know what's embarrassing?
Go on.
Guys, you know what's embarrassing?
Yeah.
The fact that I have Indians in my hood that drive better cars than I ever will. And I feel like I'm more educated than them. And it's I don't know. It's depressing me, man.
Listen, somebody said here, Gareth, your show spread far and wide when people from Aliwal North listen, and that's true. And Tabo wants to know what happened to Cope's Mosiwa Lakota, your namesake.
Oh, Cope.
Shame.
That guy just embarrassed me, man. I tried changing the name, and the family said no. It's my grandfather, so I can't change it. So it is what it is, man.
But you must send us a link to your music or something. I mean, if you're a musician, he hung up.
As soon as you talked about the music, he's gone.
I mean, look, if you're gonna be a musician, we want to hear what you got.
Derek says, my privilege is taking out a student loan that I'm still paying to this day. Ooh. I so wish I'd never gone to varsity and instead been an intern.
I have so many regrets about varsity. It's not even funny. Like,
okay, so you're a mom. You've got these
Yes.
kids, and these kids are all going to be different.
yes, they already are.
And some of them are going to want to be academic, probably,
Absolutely.
and some of them are going to want to study up to master's degrees. Who knows? Which is going to
Sure.
cost you a fortune, but
Sure.
you're going to try and make it happen.
Mm,
Some of them might want to do completely different things
of course.
that don't involve that trajectory at all, and you're okay with that.
It's my one job, Gareth, to ensure that from this young age, I push them in the direction that they want to go into, because that way they're going to become the best versions of themselves. I'd be doing myself and my kids a disservice to push them into academic, all 5 of them, push them each into academia to that master's degree level. Why? Because at some point they're just going to hate me. And they're going to be like, wow, mom, I never really wanted to do this. I was clearly a sports person. Or, wow, mom, I never wanted to do this because I was clearly an entrepreneur. My job now is to say, what are you good at? What do you enjoy? If they can't speak, I need to see what their interests are. I need to see what they gravitate towards. Once I can identify what that is and what they enjoy, I start to put them in those classes. I start to get them, more infused in that environment. My one son loves to cook. Like every time I'm cooking, he's right next to me. I don't have to force him to come into the kitchen with me. He resonates to me. When he's watching YouTube videos, it's how to make a pasta, how to make eggs. So he's showing me what he likes. My job is to say, okay, cool. Let's get you into some sort of cooking classes as an extramural to start. If it's what he enjoys and he takes it seriously and professionally, I'll push him into that direction. My single job as a parent on this planet is to help my children to find what they love and get somebody to pay them for that. The end. That is it. I will never force my kids to do something they don't want to do, because I grew up being forced to do something I don't want to do, and I hated every moment. I sat there and I was like, why am I being forced to do this?
What did they want you to do?
So, I mean, in drama, in high school, all I did was drama. I won prizes for being in plays. I mean, I was really that girl. And my parents watched me from primary school to high school performing, singing, acting, dancing, doing events. And then when I got to varsity, they're like, yeah, we're not going to pay for this. Like, we'll pay for anything else but this. Do you want to do accounting or do you want to do law? And I was like, yo, bro, you've watched me excel in this one space. Why would you invest in something that I've never, ever shown any interest in? And needless to say, I never finished. It was years of just, economics.
You and I are such failures.
Bro, look at us. And we both went to Tux, right?
Yeah.
So look at us, these Tux rejects. But the biggest lesson is that it just taught me to support your children in what they want to do. You'll have a happier child and you'll be a happier parent knowing that you've at least tried.
A lot of people are like, well, my kid needs to earn money. But actually, some of the happiest people I know, not necessarily the richest.
Exactly.
They might just have a job they really love doing. They might be digging up fossils in Krugersdorp somewhere.
But it makes them happy.
And I mean, they're playing like Musiwa in Aliwal North. He's busy with music.
Yeah.
Even though he's got an IT degree.
Even though he doesn't like the fact that Indian people have better cars in his neighborhood.
It's mildly racist.
Bro, I was like, oh. But the point is, how many rich people do you know that are just so depressed and hate their lives? And because they have too much of everything that they don't have anything to fulfill them anymore. The happiest people just have the bare minimum that they need to get through the day, and they keep it moving.
Kampamba says, listening to Lebang, you start to realize it's actually lazy parenting that brought us here.
Yeah.
Get involved in your kids' lives. School isn't the only answer.
Exactly.
And by the way, a lot of varsities complain. So we're really not beating up on varsities either, even though they deserve a bit of,
an ass
because they have made it very expensive and exclusive.
Yeah.
And it's become this thing that everybody aspires to, even though the value of a degree is questionable.
Sure.
But the universities are also dealing with really difficult things. For example, numeracy and literacy, by the time people get out of high school, is not where it should be.
Exactly.
I mean, we have the worst education standards in the continent. Now, forget about the rest of the world, right? Let's not talk about, because why compare ourselves to South Korea? We're a totally different culture. We're a totally different place. We're a totally different time, frankly, to South Korea. So if you just look at Africa, Zimbabwe may have been a basket case of a country for the last 20 years.
Sure.
May have been a disaster. But Zimbabwe has had a better education system, basic education, than South Africa.
Yeah.
They've churned out more literate, numerate people than South Africa has. Now
that should tell you something.
We should be embarrassed about that.
That should tell you something. Yeah.
Hey, morning. What's up? Hello.
Morning. How are you?
Good. Who's this?
It's Mapelo.
Hi, Mapelo. What's up?
I have a problem with you, Gareth. I used to agree with you when you said you like this country because we can do whatever we want.
Mm-hmm.
I have a problem with that because I think that's the only reason why things don't work. I'd rather have a country that is strict, government that is competent, where there are consequences and where things work.
You can move to Australia. They've got all those things. No, they
knew
do.
you'd say that.
No, but I mean, you don't want to, right? Because that would be a very, very strange place for you and me to live. I wouldn't feel comfortable there, neither would you. Look, I'm being kind of sarcastic because it is what it is, Mapelo. I don't have any illusions about the fact that overnight, suddenly, Cyril's new cabinet is going to start delivering the goods. I'm not. None of us. I don't think any of us are that naive. Which is why we all are like moderately to zero excited about his new cabinet appointments. But we want a degree of competence. I think you need 2 or 3 basic things. And you know I'm being sarcastic sometimes when I say it's the Wild West, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I don't want us to like be misunderstanding
misquoted.
each other. But Mapelo, I think we need rule of law. Like there needs to be consequence. And this is one of the problems I have with the current regime is that if they just put away some bad people every now and then, I think we would all have a lot more faith in things, don't you?
I also think so.
Not one person who testified in front of the Zondo Commission has had any follow-up. Forget going to jail. There's no follow-up.
Held accountable.
Andre de Ruyter goes on TV with Annika Larsen just a couple of weeks ago, and he says, I have gone to the Hawks and I've told them who is making it difficult for these power stations to stay operational, who is deliberately sabotaging things, and who is on the take. And they did nothing. The Hawks did nothing. The Hawks, I had you're going to listen to an interview tomorrow. It's going to blow your mind. A woman called Martha, who has worked in Prasa. Okay. She is absolutely, she's probably one of the most competent, one of the most honest people that's ever been in the South African bureaucracy. And she was fired. She was suspended by Lucky Montana. Okay, this is a competent woman who's had years of experience. She's qualified. She's smart as a button. She's an accomplished black woman who has morals and values and said, I'm not putting up with this nonsense. And they sidelined her because she won't be a crook like them. And you got to hear this woman's story. I talked to her for an hour and 10 minutes. It's going to blow your mind. You want to hear how it really works? So listen to this and tell me, like, what else can we do? We just got to go, okay, well, to each man, to each his own. To each his own. You got to fend for yourself.
Sure.
I'm afraid that's what it is, right?
Yeah, I just was thinking that people are going to get the idea that, Gareth is just comfortable with how things are because he's privileged. You know, people will misunderstand it.
And for Gareth to get to this place is from years and years of hoping and trusting that things will get better, but they simply haven't. I feel like as most of us, we've been pushed and pushed and pushed. Oh. And now it's like we have no choice. It's not like we're just deciding today, you know what, let's do whatever we want. Sadly, we have to look at ourselves to find solutions. That's all.
No one goes to jail. There is no money that has been paid back.
Mm-hmm. No, correct. Right. And we've all grown up over the last 20 years going, maybe this will be the moment.
Crossing thumbs.
Come on. And there was a time where Thabo Mbeki was president where we had economic growth. And, you know, there were more jobs being made available to people. And you could see a black middle class emerging that was powerful and self-confident. And it was good. And then what happened? Boom. Just goes straight back to the vultures and hyenas that just want to take what they can off the carcass. Anyway, Mapelo, thank you. And I hope you will call in to argue with me more.
Okay. I'm glad I understand each other. And have a good day.
And you, bro.
Cheers,
and you. Cheers. Bye. Wow. It's a lot of politics for one morning.
Right? Is this giving burning platform, Gareth? I thought this was Tuesday. I thought we were just gonna go in and have like a good motivational vibe, speak about the future, chat to JJ Cornish. Here we are dissecting the whole cabinet.
No.
But it's important. It's important.
Well, we got JJ Cornish in a minute, and he's going to be telling us about what else is going on the African continent, and maybe he can also weigh in on like why our education, basic education, ends up churning out people who are less educated than even people in war zones, for heaven's sake. I mean, this is just like, it's an embarrassment. And there are these reports that come out every year. I think they've started coming out every 2 or 3 years now. But they basically compare the numeracy and literacy of various countries in the world, and then they do a specific subset of those that is for Africa. And really, like, you got to ask yourself, if it's all about education, how come Zimbabwe, who has superior education for all of their people, how come there are no jobs there for people and the economy is destroyed? And part of that answer is in the politics of Zimbabwe. But also why we've been emphasizing education. We spend a fortune on it in this country. It's the largest proportion of our budget still, and has been since 94. And yet we're not like cracking it.
There's like there's no improvement. And remember when we spoke to the First Lady about how important, early childcare development is, and those early years of a child life, those are the most critical years. And to see how the nursery school system operates, and how even the primary school education, all of that basic education has really just been diluted into it's not that important. We'll see if we can accommodate it. It's really, and it's the key. It really is the key. That is the key over tertiary, dare I say. But if you can get it right from those ages, then at the very least, we'll have some literate kids, will have some literate leaders in future coming out and making better decisions. But if you're struggling with the basics, bro, it's a wrap.
You're at a massive disadvantage for the rest of your life. There's only so much you can do, right?
Exactly. You can't take it there.
And Lebang, it's a small thing. It's not such a small thing, but these things, if you don't get them right at the beginning, they're going to have consequences down the line, which will be really bad for these kids.
Exactly.
So if we profess to care about our children, like the government always says they do, then I am entirely in favor of feeding schemes at schools. That I do. I've never ever begrudged any tax cent for that kind of thing. I don't mind if schools are helping kids to be nourished, to be healthy. All of that stuff is absolutely essential, because you can't build education on top of nothing.
Exactly.
So if a kid's arriving at school hungry and leaving hungry, there's no way they're going to learn in between.
Exactly. If the basics aren't covered, then there's nothing. You're filling in an empty hole. Half of these kids have to walk Lord knows how far to get to school. Once they're there, they haven't even eaten. It's pretty much a disaster. And it upsets me so much, Gareth, when I hear things about, we're doing so well as a country, we're moving into digital, or we're putting in this and that. Have you covered the basics?
Yeah.
That is the question. Like, in terms of priorities, we are screwed.
It's also, we've got to get to JJ, but it's this question of like hardware and software.
Sure.
If the hardware isn't right, if you don't allow a kid who's growing up to have the proper nutrition, an environment where they feel secure and loved, then the actual hardware of the system is not going to grow properly and be established. And it doesn't matter what software, what education you put into that system. If the hardware is screwed, it's not going to be able to read it.
Exactly.
It's like there's a discount. It's MS-DOS with like OS 10.
Yeah.
They're not talking to each other.
Exactly.
Anyway, listen, we got to get to JJ Cornish, which is always my favorite part of a Tuesday. And we don't see him every Tuesday, but every second one. And we speak to him about all the goings on the African continent. It is called Africanalysis, and it is brought to you by the Johannesburg Business School. One of our most important, what would we call it, appointments of the week is with JJ. So here he is, JJ Cornish. Good morning, sir.
Bonjour to both of you.
JJ,
hang on. That was my fault. Go ahead.
Okay, I said bonjour to both of you.
Bonjour, JJ.
Bonjour to you.
Ça va?
Ça va très bien, merci. Are we speaking French because we're starting with Tunisia?
That's as far as it goes.
You know what? We're speaking French because I know you are French, and you're probably one of the reasons that you're so good at your job, and one of the reasons we love to talk to you is because you don't only understand Anglophone Africa, because really there are two Africas. You know, Thabo Mbeki always used to say there are two South Africas, but there's Anglophone and Francophone Africa, and sometimes the two of them don't talk to each other at all. We see that at the AU often, but you can actually understand both.
Yeah, and Lusophone I cannot, and Arabic I sadly cannot. These are the languages I should be learning. That divide, the Francophone African divide, you know, we talk about Sahara, sub-Sahara and north of Sahara Africa. That linguistic divide is bigger than the desert, actually. And it persists, sadly. You know, it really is. And that's, of course, a legacy of colonialism. But it's there, and it shouldn't be. You know, we should have been able to cross it. I know that Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma tried. She was taken to France and given us intensive lessons in French, but I never heard her speak it. I know we had a French visitor once when I was still very active covering foreign affairs day to day for a newspaper. And I said, Minister, what I've done is prepared a little question in French for you so that the French journalists, you know, will see the value of your French lessons. And I might pop this question to you in French. And she said, don't you dare.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, I did.
What a pity. All right, JJ. So let's get into some of the stories that you want to talk about this morning that are the most significant and interesting for this week. And you said Tunisia, so you've kind of already let the cat out of the bag. But thousands of Tunisians have defied the government ban on protests against racist remarks by the president and his increasingly autocratic rule. First of all, what did the president say? And second of all, what racism are they dealing with in Tunisia, especially?
Well, 4 out of 5 Tunisians believe they have a real problem with racism. Now, what the president said was that the influx or the flood, we're not supposed to use the word flood when it comes to migrants, but the deluge of migrants coming in are all a plot to undermine the sort of Arabist element of Tunisia. Now, Tunisia is a small country, punches above its weight in the African Union, at the United Nations. It plays the game. Now, remember where it came from, where it had a real despot, a real anti-democratic Ben Ali, who was overthrown. The start of the Arab Spring was, of course, in Tunisia. Now elected is Kais Saied, and he in 21, in fact, he's dissolved parliament. So he's running the country, and with the new constitution, and the Tunisians are very much against this. Now the union called the UGTT, the kind of confederation of unions, which was one of the recipients of the Nobel Prize for setting free Tunisia at the time, they've taken to the streets over remarks by the president and also over his economic policies, which they say are escalating inflation and causing all sorts of trouble and hardship for the Tunisians. But his remarks, as I say, were to say the black Africans coming into the country are there to undermine the Arabist nature of the thing, the demographics of Egypt. Now, once you use that word demographics, you're sort of into Nazi territory. He's denied it. But countries like Guinea, Cote d'Ivoire have actually sent charter planes to get their nationals out, because following his remarks, some of these foreigners, and some of them students there on particular, perfectly legal pretext, were attacked. They're thrown out of their lodgings, and some of them were even sacked. So there's been very bad stuff following this. The Tunisians are saying, no foreigner needs to fear anything. But the people have taken to the streets saying everyone is welcome in this country. There have been travel advisories, which you always get when things like this happen, from Britain, from Canada, from Australia, saying be very careful now when you go to Tunisia. And Tunisia's lifeblood is tourism, fisheries. And, if they start losing tourists as a result of this, Kais Saied has got something to answer for. We'll see what happens when he stands for election again. But certainly the Tunisians themselves, and these are people I know, have taken to the streets to say, not in my name. You're not using this kind of language and thinking you can get away with it. And the authorities respond as they would in any undemocratic way with an undemocratic leader. We'll stop you talking. We'll stop your protests. There have been arrests. And of course, the demand is being made for the release of those people. So it's all up in the air at the moment in Tunisia. It's a small country, and it's a country very, very close to Europe. So they get a lot of budget tourists. They get a lot of health tourists. They built a health infrastructure there for people who are recuperating or that have treatment and go to Tunisia for it. And to see that this undermined or destroyed, and they did, of course, because of terrorism, 3 or 4 very bad acts of terrorism that stopped the tourists going to Tunisia. Now this is happening again because of undemocratic behavior by the president. Very, very sad, Gareth.
You think that the world is just moving towards a more open, democratic, liberal, free kind of paradigm, but it really isn't. In places like Tunisia, the hope of the Arab Spring was that this would result in a better kind of North Africa, and then that would spread to other parts of the world too, where they had these autocrats. But it's so sad, JJ. It seems that like the wheel turns and history just repeats itself.
Indeed, it does. It's very, very sad. I mean, we look at neighboring Morocco and see what is happening there. Don't get me started on Morocco. Yeah, but, Algeria is one area where again, it showed a lot of promise, but Tebboune, the new, there's some intolerance there too towards protests and street protests. And these were accepted for some time. So, sadly, in the Maghreb, that part of the part of Africa where the sun sets in Arabic, Maghreb is the opposite of Mpumalanga, and I'm sad to say there have been some very, very, very tragic development.
JJ, the 46 least developed countries in the world meet for their first conference. Now, this has got to be like. This is like the people who can't get dates all getting together at a different thing to the actual date night. I mean, it's kind of it's a little bit sad, but it is.
Not even the tide would take them out.
Shame. Yeah, I mean, this is so sad. They're in a race against time to meet the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I mean, it's so unfair to punish the 46 least developed countries in the world by implementing this UN Sustainable Development Goal infrastructure on them. But, the UN has their mandate, and this is what they think that they're there to do. So all these poorer countries in the world and less developed countries now feel that they have to live up to the expectations of the UN. They're all getting together. It's like a coalition of the wounded. They're all kind of limping in there, and they're going to try and put their case. This is kind of, it's a bit of a disappointment in the making, isn't it? Why would you even start?
In fact, Gareth, they've been meeting for 50 years every decade. So this is their 5th meeting. They're celebrating 50 years of it. They've got certain criteria that you have to meet to become among the poorest.
You have to be poor. You have to be miserable.
Well, all of those. Yeah. Or else just start your career in journalism, and then 10 years later it comes automatically, Well, the fact is, of the 46, sad to say, 33 are African countries. And you'd be surprised at the ones that are there, in our neighborhood, none immediately. But, I could read you that list, but it's unedifying and an unedifying read. But countries that have graduated out of that, Botswana in 97, Cape Verde in 2007, Maldives in 2011, Samoa in 17, Equatorial Guinea also in 17, and Vanuatu in 20. They're not all African.
So in other words, I mean, those are countries who have escaped this horrible meeting of the losers. Yeah. And that, I mean, we must be very proud that we know that Botswana's out of there, that, that there are some other countries, Maldives, for example. I mean, it's good to get out of this meeting. This is not the meeting you want to be in.
Sure.
Oil-rich Angola is still one of the least developed countries. Now, Antonio Guterres, opening this conference, spoke of the need for a, quote, revolution of support. He wants $500 billion a year for these countries from the international community, and says no more broken promises. We need a new international financial system. The WTO and the IMF have to be radically reformed to meet the needs of these countries. But the global injustice is he says unacceptable. But they're affected by, of course, the COVID crisis. They're still feeling the effects of that. The climate change is the one area that's hitting them terribly. And so there's a program of action, the Doha program of action. Qatar, incidentally, is not a least developed country, but it's still considered a developing country. But this race against time, they had the development goals from the Y2K goals. They were not met.
Don't you?
So they kind of moved this date now to 2030.
Don't you love the way that these countries that are, they're using maybe nuclear energy or wind and solar, and they've got all these complicated and advanced ways of generating energy. They're telling countries that only have coal, they're not allowed to burn coal. It's like you just keep not being developed, but we're also going to implement these very strict rules on how you're allowed to have your energy. It's just,
and the only way we became developed was we burned coal.
Right. It's the essence of sadomasochism. It's like, you are made sick and I command you to be well.
Yeah, that's neo-colonialism at work. And
So,
look at the countries that really did develop. They all did it on the back of coal. And, but we can't have our turn at that. Of course, the environmental needs are great, and the whole sort of environmental onslaught has changed, but we have to have a better deal. And if we're not allowed to use coal, then there has to be some proper form of mitigation and compensation.
Well, let's just look at the opposite problem that we have, because there are one or two countries in Africa that are doing exceptionally well, though you wouldn't really call them African countries. They fit into our sphere of influence. One of them is the Seychelles, and I'm fascinated by the Seychelles. I've never been there. I've only seen how absolutely spectacular it looks there, and they offer, obviously, luxury holidays to super rich people from all over the world. But they've apparently got their own problem. They've got a big drug problem. 10%, Lebang, of the population of the Seychelles is reliant on heroin, cocaine, or crack cocaine.
Crack cocaine is still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't
Very
go with
much so there. Very much so. It's a very disturbing documentary I watched on that on BBC. But now the Seychelles, that's 155 islands up there. Very, very important strategically. And I'm young enough to remember when South Africans could afford to go to the Seychelles. I don't think they can anymore. But they have the highest GDP per capita in Africa. They also rely on tourism, fisheries, but they have really severe climate change risks, rising ocean, being islands. They would really have a problem. And then the salinity in the soil and the aquifers, this is all hitting them. But suddenly we're learning, they've got a small population, 100,000 people, 25% of whom live in poverty. So, I mean, that shouldn't surprise one. The inequality anywhere in Africa is shouldn't surprise one. But here we have, as we say, cocaine, crack, and heroin all coming in. The documentary mentioned the number of tons of heroin coming in, and the 10% of the people reliant on it. I don't know how they pay for it, because if they're that poor, but it was very, very, very sad. And I think the Seychelles, if they want to maintain this cachet as a millionaire's playground, is going to have to do something, going to have to address that problem, social problem, and they're going to have to do it very soon.
Maybe they should just reshuffle their cabinet. I mean, that's obviously that's the magic thing. That's what we're all waiting on tenterhooks to see implemented now that we've got the announcement of our new cabinet ministers. JJ, it's good to have you on as always. Thank you so much for being a part of our week and our digest of information on Africa. It's brought to you by the Johannesburg Business School, and we'll catch you very soon.
I look forward to it. And please remember what I told you once. I told you 1,000 times, Gareth, you are too young to be so cynical, eh?
It's yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, somewhere in there, I'm still an optimist, but I'll have to yet prove it to you, JJ. Thank you.
Au revoir.
All right. Au revoir.
Love JJ, man. What a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Like, would you have known half of these things about what's happening in Africa if it weren't for him? Exactly.
No, this is why we need him more than we think we do.
Yeah. 10% of the Seychelles population are like addicted to heroin, crack, and cocaine.
Heavy, huh?
Like, we should go single-handedly help them to stop.
You think so?
This. Yeah,
you think we can help?
We could help. Let's help them get rid of all the
says the country with a major tick problem and a cat problem and yeah.
Our drugs are worse.
Listen, he was saying 25% of their population is in poverty. We should wish for those numbers.
6 minutes after 10, they've sent out the press release. We fired the bitch. First person I call is my mom. She's like, you're going to sue them. I said, no, I'm not. She says, you're going to sue them. I said, no, I'm not. You're going to use this constitution that we have, which is one of the best in the world, and you're going to sue. Do you hear me? So I go, Ewema. David calls me. He says, Mom and Dad have spoken to me. They've told me you don't want to sue. They're telling me that you are going to sue. So we're suing. My dad was like, you're not going to touch them for at least a year. So I'm like, why? He's like,
I just know.
No, he said it. He said they're going to turn on each other. I'm like, Daddy, there's no way they're going to turn on each other. He said to me, Mdanam, our people have told me that I must tell you, you're going to wait a year and let them turn on each other. So when they fired Sbongile, my dad said, now you can go.
to break free. I want to break free. Time for losers, 'cause we are the champions of the world.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
I know somebody who I actually work with was telling me about the time when lightning struck their house, and essentially all the plugs got fried. And because they didn't have those little red, I don't know what it's called, but those plugs which
was a requirement by the insurance.
It was a requirement by the insurance, and every single appliance got destroyed, but they didn't pay out. And I was like, what? That seems like something that should be kind of at least discussed.
Yeah.
So just read those terms and conditions and see what's going on there.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
All right, it is Tuesday morning, the 7th of March, cliffcentral.com. We have had a roller coaster of a first hour this morning. It's been busy.
Mm-hmm.
And we covered a lot of ground. We've talked about education and politics and cabinet reshuffles and African analysis and lots of other cool things.
And we haven't even gone through like any like actual news headlines.
No.
That's how much fun we're having here.
Well, we're going to get into that in a second, but I do want to tell you about our guest who's going to be joining us shortly. He is Dion Chang. He is a trend analyst, and he is also the founder of Flux Trends, which takes the unique view that trends are a business strategy. And he's passionate about assisting companies to embrace change, embedding a culture of innovation into corporate operating systems. He's exactly the kind of guy we need to talk to when we are empty of ideas.
Yeah.
And he looks at what's next. He said there are a couple of things he wants to address today. The Generation Z immersion experience, which is all about what Gen Z is actually going to be able to do that no previous generation could do.
That's interesting.
Also, the state we're in 2023, like what do we need to do, not only in South Africa, but in the world,
Sure.
in order to emerge victorious at the end of this year and perhaps even the end of this decade?
Sure.
So there's a lot to talk about with Dion Chang. He's always fascinating, and we'll get into that in just a short while.
Yeah.
First things first, let's look at a couple of headlines.
I thought you were going to say rest in peace, Uncle Phil. I'm disappointed, Gareth.
Oh, shame his Uncle Phil died.
First things first, rest in peace, Uncle Phil. Uncle Phil died years ago.
And that was what they said.
Well, that's what J. Cole said. But yeah, first things first, rest in peace,
Uncle Phil from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yes, when he died, we were all like, oh man, like that
First
was all
first.
our dad. So first things first.
Sorry,
Rest
I'm
in
totally out of it. Apparently, you're putting on the first Cliff Central Braai this Friday.
Yes, so since
We're not opening this up to everybody, though.
no, not yet. I mean, all I requested was 100 rand from
I remember.
each year, and everybody's
and they all
complained.
cheapskates weren't
Nobody-
interested.
Nobody has sent anything. I
So
think,
what are we doing? 3 Viennas?
Yeah, I'm looking at maybe 4 Russians at the most. We'll just chop them up and have half of a Russian each. But we'll see. It's gonna be this Friday. You know, I like the idea of having like some team building vibes. And just having people relax. You know, we come to work and we're working. You know, we don't have that opportunity to really just like, So I just want to see everybody in their element. I want to see who's going to do what. I know that Tabile is planning on bringing people, of which I've said to him, like, it's an internal team,
Yeah.
right? But
He can't
he
help
doesn't.
it.
Yeah, he can't help it. He wants to bring people. As long as everybody pays their $100, they've got until tomorrow. If you don't send your $100 to me tomorrow, then sorry.
Well, you'll update us on who pays.
I will. So we'll see. It's gonna be fun.
So they are putting in an alcohol ban in Iraq. I just assumed Iraq would be an alcohol-free place anyway,
Sure.
because it's a Muslim country,
Sure.
majority Muslim country. But Christian politicians in Iraq are attempting to overturn legislation banning the import and sale of alcohol. Seemingly, they're enough to make a small minority, and they seem to have a voice in parliament, which is interesting. Customs officials were given orders on Saturday to enforce the ban. It became law last month despite opposition. The group, which has 5 whole seats in Iraq's parliament, filed a lawsuit that's like the ACDP, right? Filed a lawsuit saying it was undemocratic. Public alcohol consumption is frowned upon in Iraq, a predominantly Muslim country, but it can be bought at liquor stores and licensed bars.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think of us, and I think of how badly we would deal with a liquor ban. And we know, because in recent history, there's been such a thing. We had our own prohibition not so long ago.
It didn't go so well. I mean, it went well for the black market, that's for sure.
Didn't go so well for the government.
Not for the government,
the
though.
police, or for the average person in South Africa who wanted their drink.
Yeah, but it also sparked a hustle inside of you. If you wanted your drink, you would find it.
Right?
You would find it.
Even if you prepared to pay a whole lot more.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's you take the good and the bad at the end of the day.
But interesting. Like, I really didn't know that Iraq even had liquor sales.
Me too. Because they're very like, we don't want to do anything. This is our life. They are extremely, what is it, religious? That's the word. Yeah.
Definitely. So Bruce Willis's wife has begged the paparazzi not to yell at him in the street. Poor guy. So apparently Bruce Willis obviously is suffering. He's got dementia. And Emma Hemming Willis, who is his new wife, has asked paparazzi to please keep their distance and stop yelling at him when they see him in public. She made an emotional plea in a video shared on her Instagram page over the weekend, saying there's still a lot of education that needs to be put forth about people who live with dementia. Recounting a recent incident in which photographers attempted to speak to Bruce as he made a rare public appearance to meet friends for coffee in Santa Monica, the 44-year-old model noted how difficult and stressful it can be to get someone out into the world and navigate them safely.
Yeah, look, you're Bruce Willis. We're gonna want to know how you're doing. You're actually famous. And we're gonna ask questions. And now that we know you're not doing well, we're gonna even be more interested.
But you can't shout at someone.
Sure, but dude, you're Bruce Willis. Gareth, if you saw Bruce Willis, are you just gonna say, oh, tra-la-la-la-la, let me keep it moving? It's Bruce Willis, dog. It doesn't matter what state he's in. I'm gonna want to know.
Yeah, but okay, so he's suffering from dementia, so he's going to get confused.
Sure.
You're going to make him all anxious.
Yes.
He probably doesn't even want to leave the house at this point. So you getting your chance to say hello to Bruce Willis is probably going to put him in a state for the next 3 months. So you weigh them up. What's actually more important, his overall health or you needing to scream out, Bruce Willis.
I completely agree with you, but I am an average human who has no life, and here's Bruce Willis walking down the street. This is the guy I've been watching all my life in movies. I'm not going to stop and say, oh no, he's sick. Let me give him an opportunity to go about his life. This is Bruce Willis.
Then it makes you a horrible person, Lebang.
And that is the world that we live in, Gareth. Welcome. Welcome to the reality. Nobody cares that you're sick or you're this or you're that. They are going to go in and try get their 2 minutes of fame. I want a picture with Bruce Willis, regardless of his condition, so I can post it on Instagram and feel good about myself. This is just, it's the reality. If anything, his wife should be not keeping him in the house, but just try find a way to balance that. It's Bruce Willis, guys.
Nah, you're putting your needs above his.
I am an average person in the world. This is what's going to happen, is what I'm saying.
Here's one last thing I want to tell you about quickly. This is an amazing story. So Action SA, Herman Mashaba's party, has accused the EFF in Tshwane of theft and stealing polygraph testing equipment. According to Action SA, EFF stormed into private property on Monday morning where Action SA councillors were being subjected to polygraph testing. The tests were to determine which party voted against the party line, which mandated support for the DA candidate. Led by the party's chairperson, they entered the EFF, disrupted the testing process, and stole the equipment.
EFF is on one.
So, I mean, I'm just thinking like how basic you have to be afraid of equipment that's going to show that you lied.
That's the first red flag, right?
Yeah.
What's going on?
So a polygraph tests if you were being honest or dishonest. They're not 100% accurate. Nothing is. They give you a fair indication of whether someone is really saying what they mean and doing what they say.
Sure.
Right? Basic integrity. So basic integrity frightens the EFF so much that they will storm into a room, disrupt and steal equipment because they would hate someone to know their true feelings. That's a hell of a story.
Yeah, look.
You know, if emotionless scientific equipment frightens you and threatens you,
you're in the wrong industry.
You shouldn't even be on planet Earth.
Yeah, no.
There's a lot of problems going on there. Imagine how they're going to feel when Neuralink comes along. Anyway, we got on the Neuralink thing, we're going to talk to someone who is South Africa's premier futurist. I mean, I can say that without any sense of irony or playing it up or playing it down. He's one of the smartest people in the country. He's also the founder of Flux Trends and somebody who we love to check in on from time to time because he's looking at all the things that are going on and analyzing them and trying to make sense of them. He is Dion Chang. And he is also a man who's had 20 experience in the media industry as a journalist and as a media spokesperson. He can provide insights into the ever-changing relationship between brands, consumers, and the communication channels that bind them. But he also has a passion for watching what the youth are up to and finding out what subcultures are growing in various places, as well as a solution-based innovation for the greater good. He's an intrepid traveler, global citizen, and a proud South African. And he's also our guest this morning, Dion Chang. How nice to see you.
Morning.
Yeah, good. How are you?
I'm very well, yeah.
Yeah, so Dion, first of all, it's nice to see you. I know Lebang made it to one of your presentations recently.
Yes.
You did
Mind
a thing.
blown.
Yeah, she was. I don't know. You've seen Dion before, right?
Yeah, I have, but not in that setting. I felt like I could like touch you and like really like get into your mind. It was something else because not enough people are really interested in that way in what is coming.
Yes.
So they should be.
Exactly, and they should be.
Yes.
They should be.
So Dion, first of all, Flux Trends, it's now been a while, and you guys are firmly established as the people to talk to when you want to understand what could be next and where things are going, and also what the basic flux is in society. Is it heading this way, that way, or the other?
Absolutely, yeah. This is heading into our 17th year now.
Wow,
okay, for 17
phenomenal.
years. Yeah, so very proud and very pleased about that.
So there's lots to talk to you about this morning. Chiefly among these things, a lot of people are interested in Gen Z, and I saw this very snide remark from somebody about Gen Z earlier. So I'm gonna read this to you, and we can start on this because maybe this is what kicks off the conversation. Yes. Michael says, "What will Gen Z do or bring to the table except woke shit?" So that's a hell of a cynical place to start. But let's talk about Gen Z. So who exactly are, because we need to get these definitions right.
Yeah.
It took me a while to figure out whether I was Gen X or millennial or a bit of both. There are not absolute, black and white lines here. But But Gen Z is roughly from when?
So let's start from the oldest. The oldest are turning about 25 now already.
The oldest Gen Z.
The oldest Gen Z, okay.
They're about 25. So the youngest are sort of early teens getting to that. So I'll just skip ahead because we're already tracking Gen Alpha.
So just hang on. How much space do you give each generation? 20 years? Roughly.
Yeah, roughly about that. So in South Africa, your Gen Zs are your born frees. So,
okay.
So from 94, so mid 90s. And like I said, so the oldest are 25. So we started tracking this generation about 8 years ago. So long before they started coming of age, or they were just only starting to come of age. And the reason why we were quite fixated, or I'm very fixated on Gen Zs. Or Gen Z, depends which side of the Atlantic you want to be on, is because, so to clarify for people, the first digital natives of humanity. Yeah. So the first generation that have known no other world besides Google, besides with smartphones and the internet, which means that brain mapping of learning is completely different.
Sure.
I say in the talks that I do, to parents and to teachers, sorry for you, but you're no longer the font of wisdom. Google is, and if you so you don't need the old school, literally, of being in a classroom and being taught parrot fashion. Because if you have a curious mind, you will just Google it and you'll find. So there's different ways of learning, which means we're reaching another wave of it with generative AI, ChatGPT, all of those kind of things coming through. That's another way of you're gonna have to learn differently and all of those things. I was really interested in your conversation earlier this morning about tertiary education, because I was doing a little happy dance when I was listening to that, because I've been going on about that since about 2015 when the first fees must fall started rising. And I said, we've picked the right battle, but the wrong war, because you're just getting, it's just that old school mentality. You've got to get that degree. You've got to, and I still hear it so often now, get something as a backup. That backup is so obsolete, at the moment. And so when you were chatting about that, that's exactly what I've been saying to a lot of people. And everyone's like, even 2015, they said, don't you want your engineers and your doctors to have a degree? And I'm like, of course I do. But there's different ways of doing things now. And so my point, going back to the Gen Zs, is when you'll find a very, very strong entrepreneurial, so to that question, so you'll find a very high social justice barometer.
Yeah.
They've been handed damaged everything, politics, economy, social structure, all of those kind of things. So, and you made a comment also about this new cabinet, and what you're starting to see is older people, let's say older leadership, plan very differently to younger leadership. And what makes my heart really sing is that you're starting to see Gen Zs enter politics now at a much earlier age. So compared to the millennials before them, you're starting to see people go to sort of civic duty activism at 17, 18. We have she was then the youngest cabinet minister on the African continent. Her name was Emma Theophilus. She's the deputy ICT minister in Namibia. At 23, she became a deputy minister just before the pandemic hit.
Sure.
So she said it was like a baptism by fire.
Sure. Wow.
But you're getting these things, and then over in America, you've got the first Gen Z in one of the houses, and he's 25 years old. Also, no degree, just a huge passion.
Sure.
And just on that social justice barometer, he has won the seat in, and I think his seat is in Orlando. So it's like a little blue dotted Democrat in the
state of Florida, which is red.
Yeah, red, yeah.
So, I mean, that's interesting, because politically also, there seems to be a lot more depth and variety in Gen Z than there is in the millennials, because actually this term wokeism, woke is kind of a millennial thing. It's not really a Gen Z thing.
No, I think it's been so I play in one of my trend briefings about Gen Z, I play a little video clip, and it describes it perfectly. So the girl at the end says, millennials might have invented social media, but Gen Z weaponized it. And that's true, you know. And people say, oh yeah, but you know, a few years ago, they're just teenagers, they don't have disposable income, they have all of those kind of things. And I keep saying to our retail clients, I said, yeah, but actually, if you think about it, who actually steers the household budget? Who decides what you're going to eat?
And who are these companies most afraid will say that they're not cool?
Exactly. Yeah,
it's Gen Z.
And so they've been manipulating the family budget all along. And so now that they're coming into the workforce, I say to especially consumer-facing companies, you've got a pincer attack on you, because not only are they your new and very, very difficult, very savvy consumer, but they're also now entering the workforce. So it's a two-pronged attack.
And Dion, when they buy things, it's not just about having a product. They actually care about the values, the process, what the company stands for. And we poo-poo that if you're not in that generation, because you think, oh, what the hell's wrong with you? If you want a phone, it doesn't matter to you if small children in some foreign country are busy putting it together in a sweatshop, but they actually care.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's a huge
or pretend to care on social media. It's hard to tell the difference.
And the thing is also so they now might not have that huge disposable income, but they can mobilize. So you know, you see that connectivity, and one of the biggest leveling of playing fields is connectivity. So you don't have to give that generation. You can give them connectivity. You don't have to give them a device. You don't have to explain the technology to them, because the technology isn't technology.
Yeah, sure.
It's how it is.
It's life.
It's life and how you do things. So you can really sort of make connections. You can mobilize. You can do that, which is why they're saying that the influence, obviously maybe not so much the wisdom, but the influence of a Gen Z with that connectivity has the same influence as somebody who's in their 40s or whatever. You are able to just use that technology.
Dion, I must say, I think it's incredible that, you know, Gen Zs have put themselves in, you know, this position of taking on politics. All that is great. But as a parent, I'll have to be honest, I'm worried, because almost daily, my kids are like, well, Mom, you say one thing and Google says another. Aren't there like some challenges or some bad things that we should be aware of now? In with regards to the future trends, what are some of the things we should be worrying about?
Obviously,
as parents?
with that connectivity comes obsession with devices and being online. And you know, if you work backwards, that's the Silicon Valley business model. It's eyeball time, so it's to keep you, which is why we make this comparison of changing lanes in careers, because you never know where your skills are going to land up. So just on that topic, one of the most surprising poaching mechanisms in Silicon Valley for the past decade or so has been casino slot machine designers for tech companies. Yeah, everyone goes,
that's
what?
Interesting. Yeah. Wow.
So when I do a presentation, I put slot machines up on the screen, and then I put your homepage of your smartphone there. And who better to know how to keep you on your phone than somebody that designs slot machines?
It's literally, and that's you swiping. I get it.
It's got lights. Yes. It's got different colors. It's got haptic effects.
Yes.
It's got vibrations. It's got all of those kind of things. And then suddenly you put it together. You go, aha!
You're playing us.
You know, that's why there's this whole pushback. The EU is about, you know, trying to ban TikTok. America this week is about to go into this huge ruling whether they can or can't, you know, do that.
Oh no, we're gonna lose a whole tribe of people who've told us they're influencers. What are we gonna do without them? How will we survive?
Yeah.
So Dion, can I ask you about this before we move on to other things? The chief identification here in the mind of a Gen Z or Z kid is the difference and distinction between the real world and the virtual, and those becoming a little more blurred as time goes by. So sometimes they're very different. You have people who are essentially living their life as an avatar. And I mean, you know, we could talk about whether that's healthy or unhealthy, because it's clear to some people that there are good and bad things about it. But it also occurs to me that these things we're still figuring it out. We don't know yet what the psychological implications of this in the long term will be. And they may be quite detrimental in many respects. We already know that relationships are much harder for Gen Z than they were for millennials, than they were for the previous generations before that. It was easier for people to connect in a real sense.
Yes.
It's easier for Gen Z to connect online, virtually, but they find themselves a bit stuck when they're actually face to face with people. Depression and anxiety are sky high. Suicidality is becoming a problem.
Sure.
So overall, there are things to be worried about here. But how do you, when you're speaking to and about these Gen Z people, how do you figure the virtual versus the real?
Yeah, that's quite it is a difficult one, because it is blurring a lot. So if you start thinking, even your younger Gen Zs who's starting to game, parents quite a while back were starting to scratch their heads because they were spending more money on avatar skins than fast fashion.
We still are.
Some very clever brands have actually built. This is hard to get even my own head wrapped around. A little, it's one of your big fast fashion brands that they've created Loop Island in one of the games, where you can recycle your avatar skins. So you can go in and it's embedding that message to say, can they, and they've got your, a sustainability influencer who does the real life thing, but then you can go into Loop Island.
Of course, it's all nonsense though, because there's no real sustainability issue.
Yeah, exactly. Because
there's just disconnected from reality
for everything. So you go,
but it's essentially like it's a swap shop.
It's a swap shop, and you can do things. So brands are starting to be able to build things in there. You can build your own little retail. It's really, really clever. So they say, here's your access to our inventory. You create a little shop in the metaverse, and you can stock it up with there. So you play with their stock, but you kind of just get more and more ingrained, into it. And there's a reason why all of your really, really high-end luxury brands, especially like a Gucci or something like that have gone full throttle for this generation. And you're thinking, but they can't afford this stuff. And you're going, no, but it's a long game. We'll get you hooked in, we'll get you brand aligned, and then when you eventually can buy something, then you will have that automatic loyalty to to our brand, and we'll make it really interesting for you to be able to do that.
But again, we're talking now about consumer trends.
Yes.
My concern is more, how do we understand and make sense of the virtual and the real when we're talking to these people?
Yeah. So as you said, there's a lot of mental wellness issues about this, so in terms of even the relationships.
Because it creates cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
There's the real world in which you are required to actually be able to speak to people and interact normally with people and provide some kind of product or service in the real world in order to have a purpose.
Sure.
And then there's the virtual world where you can make it all up on a daily basis and change your mind about it on a daily basis.
Yes, absolutely. So the one little signifier, so we always put little bellwethers into our work, just to make sure that we know that what we're tracking is actually happening. And so the little bellwether. So one of the bellwethers, and a big thing at the moment, are situationships. Okay. So you're not in a relationship. So it's that in between, which sort of is a bit of indicative of what you were saying. Is like, so people aren't quite sure, we're not there yet, and so we'll just kind of
just vibes,
see where it is, and we'll have the situationship until maybe we'll commit. It starts spiraling into a really interesting thing, because now what we're starting to see are people getting into situationships because the economies around the world are so bad. So people getting into situationships to hook up, so not intimately, but for economic reasons and budget. So we'll hook up and we'll share place. So you're kind of roomies, but you're more than roomies. So that's why the situationships are like a weird.
It sounds so unhealthy.
It's just
sounds toxic.
It's kind of there, but we're being forced into these kind of things. So and it's not just this Gen Z thing. The other little catchphrase that we've picked up a couple of past weeks are boom mates. So these are baby boomers, so really older people who are starting to say, well, I didn't save enough for my retirement, so we'll also hook up and we'll become boom mates because we can't afford.
But like old people who can't afford to live,
so you'll have to become roomies.
There's no difference between that and the situationships.
So exactly. So
that's not generational. That's interesting.
Tinder for old people.
Yeah,
that's what I'm getting.
So, you know,
Wow.
in our latest briefing that we do at the beginning of every year, that's called the state we're in, you know, I call it the great unraveling and the rise of the machines, because things are starting to unravel, and then you have to use that very lovely Afrikaans word, because it's the only one with the best mouthfeel, that you say dit ontrafel, you know, things are it's got that nice mouthy feel that it's unraveling.
Sure.
And you're starting to see that. So it's you know, you could argue that, okay, these are the kicks of the dying horse, and we are going from old systems to new systems. And yeah, please, you know, that we are moving that into the new cabinet.
The state we're in is, I mean, this is fascinating stuff. So I've read a lot about this from you, and the key themes that you talk about here are technology, retail, economy, the natural world, diplomacy, and socio-cultural.
Yes.
So, I mean, we don't want to go and spend too much time on technology, even though everybody in the world's talking about AI. Most of us have tried ChatGPT. We've asked it to do all kinds of things for us. I've been amazed at some of the results and underwhelmed at some of the others. It seems like a great first draft at things. It seems like another really useful tool to take all of this incomprehensible and varied and complex information that we're surrounded by, and to distill it into something a little more useful. That's great. But there's other stuff going on too. People have been talking for the longest time about this immersive virtual reality and all the rest of it. But, you know, even with the headsets and things, it doesn't really feel like that's happening as fast as people thought it would. You know, there's some senses that they'll just never figure out a virtual representation of. I mean, smell's going to be extremely complicated, touch as well. So what are the things that the technology people are most excited about? Because I always wait for an update on my phone thinking it's going to be able to allow me to teleport and God knows what else. We've got to be realistic. There's a law of diminishing returns that's coming in with a lot of the devices that we've grown up with, right?
So what we're tracking, so just in terms of ChatGPT, so the term is generative AI, but people are saying you should actually just call it generative tech, because AI is only one component of that. So what we're tracking at the moment are going to be very, very interesting legal issues. So at the moment, there's a lawsuit between a company called Stability AI and Gallo and Getty Images. So everyone's talking about ChatGPT, so that's just sort of generating your text and everything. This is text to image,
right?
So you're starting to see, and people, and the reason why Gallo and Getty are saying, well, you know, if generative AI scours what's in cyberspace for that, then you can't take those images because there's copyright on that.
Okay.
The next step already is music industry. So I don't know if you've seen a clip with David Guetta, and what he's done is, he took. He said, write me something in Eminem style. And then he took Eminem's voice and then he played it out to a crowd. They went ballistic. And he just said, gosh, that really worked out well.
And Eminem had nothing to do with it.
And he had nothing to do with it.
It's using his intellectual property or his intellectual identity. Let's not say property. Because these are not songs that have been written before. But you could also, if you look on the internet, there's some terrifying movies of guys who are busy overlaying essentially generated voices of other people, indistinguishable from the original. But it's me talking, and yet I'm talking like Leonardo DiCaprio and then Arnold Schwarzenegger and everything else, which I was doing before, but at least I was doing it myself.
They've caught
this
up
is now the machine that's doing it.
So your deep fakes are becoming
these deep fakes are
easier and also more commercialized. So you're getting daily just really quick commercial applications you just put in, and you can say, I want to do that. And then in the film world, they're saying, you know, so this is also another problem, is they're saying, okay, we want Harrison Ford to be the young Indiana Jones, so we'll just use AI and we'll just put, you know, give him an extra 20 years back, and then we can do that. And
hologram concerts. I mean, they've done this with Tupac already.
So
right?
to your point, Gareth, I think so. For me, I am excited and terrified about generative AI. But I want to just point out to everybody listening is that everyone's fixated about ChatGPT 3 at the moment, which kind of just at the beginning of the year went on everybody's radar. Everybody tried to get onto it. But a lot of people don't know that ChatGPT 3 was actually launched in 2020, so 3 years old. ChatGPT 2 was launched in 2019. ChatGPT 4 is going to be launched in about 18 months' time. So I haven't got the figures with me, but ChatGPT 3 has something like 170 something million parameters, they call it. So these are like connections that you can make. ChatGPT 4 will have something, I don't know what the correct number, something trillion parameters, which very coincidentally is the same number of synapses the human brain has.
Damn.
So in 18 months' time, that's when I'm going to be really interested to see and terrified where this goes, because you're going to have a generative AI which has the same synapses as a human brain.
This is the singularity.
Like all these movies have predicted.
Exactly.
Like, I Am Legend was right.
Well, so we're getting into that. And then just to go back to the blurring of lines. So I was doing this sort of executive thing, and luckily one of the ladies said, no, the metaverse does make sense for me. He said, because my daughter went on her first metaverse date.
Don't say date. Oh.
But so Lebang, so this will make you, maybe this will make you a bit pleased. She said, firstly, she wanted her hair and makeup done, and she wanted a new outfit. She said it was much cheaper to do it virtually.
Okay.
Just buy a skin.
Okay.
And get your avatar to have the hair and makeup done.
Yeah.
And she said the best thing about the whole date was that my daughter was sitting next to me.
So she was in on it.
So there was no hanky-panky.
This is also unhealthy, though. Oh my God, this is
It's
so
scary,
unhealthy.
right? It doesn't sound real for us,
Ay.
but for them, it's so real.
It's absolutely real.
Mm.
But and then Gareth, so this is why I like what we do, because you get these sort of weird anomalies and then inconsistencies coming up. So we picked up yesterday. We have these sort of big weekly meetings and think tanks where we discuss a whole lot of things. And it's a new TikTok thing called body doubling. Okay.
This sounds dangerous.
No, so this is it's so random and so weird. So you put a camera there while you're working, and so that you can stream to people and you just work. And then now and again you turn to the camera and you answer a comment or whatever. So it's like trying to make the reconnections if you're working remotely of having people around you. Except it's not only your office colleagues, it's like you're beaming
world.
out there. So it's getting a
So
little bit
essentially people are just watching you work.
Yeah.
You got to ask who the people are who are watching you work.
And people will watch, Gareth. Like for us, it sounds weird, but there's
know.
people that are interested in just sitting and watching you live. It's people watching, but just in your hand, in your phone.
I struggled in the beginning, but I eventually understood why people would watch someone game, for example. If someone's playing a game and they do it really well, it's fun to watch, right? That's why we watch sport, essentially. So that's not so different.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is actually sucking the soul out of some people, because as I mentioned earlier, it is making them a little more desperate.
Yeah.
It is making them unhappy. Despite all of this freedom and all of this information and all of the things we were promised, it tends to have exactly the opposite, counterintuitively, the opposite effect on people, on their psyche, on their emotional well-being, their mental health. This is proof positive to me that we are still unevolved apes, and that we actually need proximity to people. We need community. We need touch. We need these very, very primal things. And if we don't have them, it doesn't matter how evolved we think we are or how digitally native we are. Essentially, we will become less and less happy and less fulfilled as human beings if we carry on down this path without any inhibitors.
But you do see, so to give you a flip side of that, you are starting to see that some, not all. So of course, when we're talking about generation demographics, it's very, very broad and very generalized. But you do see that quite a lot of Gen Zs are self-correcting as well.
Are they?
So it's like, I need to step away from the devices. So parents worry about cyberbullying, all of that. These guys bear the brunt of that. So they know when you need to draw that line and say, okay, enough. I can't do that. And you see the little sort of blips on our trend radar, that people start bailing out of social media, and then because it just becomes too toxic as well. So you do get that sort of recalibration.
I'll tell you what, that's intergenerational as well, because I think a lot of people have started to see that most of it is just actually quite bad for you.
Yeah. Dion, how are we looking with Gen Alpha? I mean, I know you touched on that, you guys are looking into, like, I have kids that are within that
Yes.
category. I mean, I have kids in every category now that I think of it. But what are some of the already noticeable trends that you guys have picked up about them? Because they
Sure.
are almost zero human life and
Yeah.
just tech as their basis.
Yeah.
And that freaks me out.
Yeah, absolutely. I was having a chat with somebody on the weekend, and they said there's an 8-month-old in the family, and every time she sees the phone, she's like, give me the phone. Give me the phone. It's like Lord of the Rings. Like,
Yes.
Give me the ring. Give me the
Yes.
ring. So there's not a lot, because they're still toddlers, that we can figure out. But what is kind of weird and kind of raise an eyebrow to it. So there's a lot of companies already targeting Generation Alpha.
Okay.
So you can learn fintech stuff and everything. So they're going through. So just for the listeners, just to clarify, Generation Alpha are the kids of the millennials.
Yes.
So they're the offspring of the millennials, and that in itself does a whole lot of different filters into what that generation is going to turn out to be.
Sure.
So your millennial parents are the first generation of parents who are happy to have a digital nanny, i.e. a screen, and the main tutor on that is YouTube.
Sure.
So YouTube is your new kindergarten, and that's what Generation Alpha are kind of growing up on.
Coco Melon and Baby
that.
Shark.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we think that Gen Zs are screen obsessed, then we've got another thing coming with Gen Alpha. And if the younger Gen Zs are already starting to go on dates in the metaverse, then where will Gen Alpha land up and do those kind of things?
What is, speaking of companies targeting these Gen Alpha children, these are children.
Yeah.
What is dark advertising?
Dark advertising, that's so the whole thing with our statement this year is about the role of AI in very, very different things. So whether it's in politics, in the N for natural world, so you've got something called disaster relief by algorithms, so they pay you out. If your area is hit by a hurricane or something like that, they don't even wait for you to claim money. They'll just say, we know that your village was wiped out, here's money, because we know that. So dark advertising it's really, really stealthy. So a lot of things people are seeing online would be dark advertising. They don't know it. So it's specifically because your algorithms are so sophisticated, they will target you at a certain time of day, at a certain time, when
Almost
you are ripe for
subconscious.
that. Yeah. But the dark advertising then disappears. So it's transient. So you will see it. You will even go back to that company's homepage, but you won't see that because it's been targeted specifically for you, and it's transient. But it will nudge you. It'll keep nudging you towards something. And usually the dark advertising will have a little, buy me button or find out more button and everything like that. So you don't really know that it's there, but it just keeps nudging. And then, so just a link to that is a kind of a new category of virtual product placement. So this is just kind of all of these subconscious nudgings that you're getting. So virtual product placement is not new within movies. In all that you put a box of cereal, all of those kind of things. What the beauty of technology does now is virtual product placement means that you can, in post-production, so you don't even have to have that product there while you're filming it. You insert that into the program, and then you insert it at a certain time of day for a certain audience there. And then for the advertiser, it is really, really good because you can remonetize a certain piece of content. So if you've got a soap opera or whatever, you can keep remonetizing that and
different products.
And if it's replayed, you put a different product in. If it's played at a certain, in the evening or the weekend, you'll put a different product in, and you can insert all of that there. So it's a bit like, it's like the deep fake of advertising. So you can put that product in when you least expect it. And so they said, over 50% of things that you thought you were going there, you've probably seen it on some dark advertising. And it's gone, and
all of this
in your head.
And all of this is happening in a world where people are increasingly unsure of whether what they're seeing is to be believed.
Sure.
I mean, this is the problem. Like we live in a world of fake news.
Yes.
And people are already questioning basic things. I mean, there were always crazy people who thought the earth was flat and that kind of thing. But now there are conspiracy theorists who have been vindicated in all kinds of really important ways. And there are people who are actively participating in propaganda, which is designed to confuse people. And I think, there are still things that are real and there are things that are fake. And it's becoming very, very difficult for some people to distinguish between the two.
And this is the big danger of generative AI, is because if you think about what generative AI does, it scours cyberspace for things. It's just like Google. It's kind of what's there. Google gives you some options and things. But I think what people really need to be aware of is, although it will, write your essay for you, it will also take things that are fake news and put it there. So if you don't double check yourself, so the whole thing with in education, so the big knee-jerk reaction was, oh no, all the sort of students, learners are going to be cribbing and they're going to be using that. Well, for every reaction there is another reaction. There's a whole lot of new software out that can just scan your stuff and say this was written by a machine, it wasn't written by you. So that's one thing. The second thing is, this is in the States, is they found out that teachers are using generative AI and ChatGPT more than the students really are. So they're saying, give me a really difficult assignment on this, and this, and this. What should I do that? And what they're saying is fundamentally, it is, again, so it's another cycle of changing the education system. So you are now engaging people who will probably be using ChatGPT, but then you're saying, so you're not teaching people, how do you interrogate that? How do you have critical thinking? How do you question? How do you do all of those kind of things? So don't try and throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, don't use this, because people are going to use it. But how do you use it, and how do you make it more challenging?
I feel like we've been down this road with hackers.
Yeah.
I feel like we got, in the beginning, hackers were terrifying and everybody was, we've got to make sure we can find out who the hackers are and put them in jail. Then people started hiring the hackers to figure out how to make better programs and apps and so on, and also figure out where the holes in their systems were.
Yes.
And then the hackers eventually became the people who wrote the best programs.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to get to a stage with ChatGPT and other AI like this as well. But let's just look at one or two other things here. We talk a bit about diplomacy and the natural world, and maybe this deserves a bit of comment because it's not just about the attitudes of Gen Z or Gen Alpha, but it's also about the people who are currently in charge, who are sometimes widely disconnected from these younger people.
Very, very much so. And I think you were mentioning it earlier today about the new cabinet, all of those things, and fundamentally, I've said it before, is older leadership plan very differently to younger leadership, because you it's like, okay, well, I've got another maybe 5 years in office or whatever,
right? 5 years to live.
Whereas, your younger politicians, and you can kind of see it where we're seeing it in South Africa. They're not Gen Zs, but you've got millennials sort of, in mayoral positions, and everything. And they're starting to push very differently to like you said, old ideas, and just like rely on all of that. So, but what is really dangerous, and that goes back to your fake news thing as well, is we're seeing a veering off, a big ontrafeling in terms of politics, going very much towards right wing. So it's not only just extremists.
This is Gen Z now?
No, just generally.
Generally.
We're talking generally.
Well, isn't this just a reaction to the reaction of the left, which has been kind of the way it's been going for the last 10 years?
Yes and no, because it's interesting. I read a really interesting paper that said the whole argument about we going left and right is not fundamentally where
because you can see what happened with Orban in Hungary. You could see what happened with Bolsonaro in Brazil.
But what is essentially happening, and this is what does worry me, is the ontrafeling, is that fundamentally democracy is based on some degree of equity in society. So there's some equilibrium, and there's not that there's no inequality, but the inequality is not that vast. What we're now starting to see in the world is inequality just starting to become this canyon. Yeah,
absolutely.
And so the leaning more towards right wing, and the reason why right wing governments are being, specifically in Europe, being sworn in, and like Italy,
and winning elections,
is people are being disgruntled, and this is why I say it's a real, not only a red flag, it's just like hundreds of red flags for South Africa, because you're starting to see that people around the world are saying it's not left or right wing, but it's I want an alternative because I'm not getting what I thought I was.
It's almost just it's almost just like a kicking the machine because you're unhappy with the results. So it's kind of like you see, you know, a lot of people who are just opting out of the system in this country.
Yeah.
Because they're just so dissatisfied and they're saying, well, anarchy is preferable.
So I see it on the road. I've been trying to collect these things. So there's two things. So one, we've got branded filled potholes, you know, so you get private sector doing that. And then on the other hand, you've got this guerrilla graffiti artists that are going around to all the potholes, spraying A and C in vivid green, all the things. So it's just like potholes are a good illustration of like where the South African psyche, you know, is, and it is worrying. But that whole not left, not right wing, but just a dissatisfaction that our society is becoming so unequal.
Well, I mean, that's why they say, for example, that
things,
you know, a Bernie Sanders supporter has more in common with a Donald Trump supporter than anything in between.
Yeah.
And that just shows you that at both ends of the spectrum, there is massive dissatisfaction.
Sure.
But this inequality thing, I mean, it's ironic then that the people who are the most privileged in society, the people who go to things like the World Economic Forum, are so out of touch with what ordinary people want. And they seem to becoming less and less in touch with that stuff. And they're almost proud of it.
It is. And I think that's if you,
and the hatred ordinary people have for those elites is like it's never been before.
Yeah.
So the, like I said, you know, it's not the left and right, it's the them and us. It's like the 1%, which over the pandemic has become the 0.5%.
Yeah.
And the rest are just, so the last year we were already talking about the middle class mirage, because it doesn't exist.
It's falling apart,
it's just,
right?
It's melted away.
Yeah.
And you've got the extreme wealthy, and then you've got people that are just, you know, I think South Africa, we need to kind of just be a bit thankful that we're a very patient lot. But we've seen in KZN and where you know, that uprising, that's where it can go, that little spark. And we wait for winters of discontent in South Africa because that's kind of strike season, you know. And
well,
where was that go?
Yes, but I mean, even that, you know, there's kind of also a bit of apathy, which I'm sure you've picked up on, is that people are unhappy, but they'll sit and moan about it online or at dinner parties, but they won't actually get up and go
do anything.
I mean, like the last major march we saw, ironically, was the DAs of all things, which is so perverse compared to like where we were. You know, the trade union can barely scrape together 20 people to go and protest in a trade union march. They used to fill the streets of Johannesburg in the 80s and 90s. And now the only people who can get a march together are the main opposition party, which is like largely not the most disenchanted, disaffected, and most impoverished people.
Well, you know,
I'm making generalizations.
If your supply chain is disrupted to such an extent you can't get your latte, then you get really angry.
Well, I mean, this is another thing, and I mean, America sort of leads the way here still, and maybe that's also something worth discussing, because China has been touted as this place that everything's going to change from, and China's got massive internal problems at the moment.
Yeah.
They've got a hugely imbalanced population. Chinese young people are not having children.
Yeah.
There's a big fallout coming there. They're paying pensions of much older people who are, and they're calling themselves the last generation.
Yeah, they've lost just because this year's trend briefing we've done a lot about demographics.
Yeah.
And China just lost 40 million workers because they're in an aging population.
And they're not being replaced.
In April, India will overtake China as the most populous
country in the world.
And that's really important because there's also a very, very young generation, very much like the African continent. It's a Gen Z country. There's a lot of young people there. I think like 1 in 5 of the world are actually young Indians.
Yeah.
But these young Indians they all started sort of coming of age after in the 1960s when the economy kind of recalibrated and kind of went more open to the world. So they said you've got the largest bank of knowledge workers in India, and good education
Yeah.
as well.
Absolutely.
And watch that workforce then come out, because then everything becomes more remote, everything like that. Already you've got call centers in India, all of that kind of thing.
Sure.
So when this starts happening, so in the next 2 years or so, when that demographic and that country just starts becoming the most populous country in the world, and you've got a good thing, as you said, the younger Chinese are saying that that's the lying flat movement. I'm not going to hustle. I don't want all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Then there's going to be a very sort of a different play. And then at the same time, America's just sort of sliding and sliding and sliding and sliding. It's just it's kind of losing the plot.
Navel gazing. It's just nothing's happening.
Yesterday's just when I closed my laptop last night, the one headline came up that the state of Tennessee, one of 14 states, but the state of Tennessee was the first state to ban drag shows. So it's like
for children.
Yeah, it's like
for children.
That's.
I think it matters that it's for children.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still drag shows, but I mean, this is America's got into arguments about unimportant things
exactly
that affect tiny percentages of their population, because they've been living in excess for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, generally, obviously, there are lots of miserable and poor Americans, and they've got a massive opioid crisis as well, which is possibly contributing to this.
Yeah.
But these are small things in a world where, for example, India will end up being the country that supplies all the smart people in all the professions across the world. They'll just wash across the world. And this is important, but America's busy worrying about which bathroom who goes into, right?
Dion, when I saw you last month, one of the things that stood out for me the most was this very TikTok thing that's happening in America. Gareth, you know that the TikTok that Americans are fed versus the TikTok that is fed that side is two different TikToks. I want to know what you think is going to happen. Do you think they're going to win this one?
I think the kind of scaremongering in America is to such a degree that they probably will pass this. And
well,
they've already banned it in government departments, for example.
So federal devices,
I mean,
you can't do that,
it's run by the Chinese Communist Party. They've funded it. They're programming it. They're using it as an information gathering exercise.
If it was just America, then I would say maybe it's just a drop in. It's just like a little blimp on the radar.
Sure.
But the EU is doing the same thing. And different countries around the world are also now starting to ban any surveillance technology that comes out of China. So there's this it's like a growing thing around the world, but the TikTok thing is one thing. And that's why they it also was an attempt to try and rewrite that, to put that 60 minutes limit
on a day,
on TikTok.
But interestingly enough, you hinted at this already. In China, if you're a child and you go onto TikTok, or if you're anything under, I think, 25, they only serve up education, science, mathematics, history,
all the good stuff,
stuff that will make you smarter.
Yes,
not people dancing.
And it's limited to, for your preteens, is limited to 40 minutes there. So what Lebang's referring to is it's if anybody listening, just Google spinach versus opium TikTok, and you'll see this on YouTube. And essentially, what this guy was saying, and that sends a shiver down all parents' spines.
I'm shaking.
Was they said they had a preteen survey in China and in America, and they said, what is your greatest ambition? In America, it was influencer. So this is all your teens. In China was, I want to be like a space
astronaut
or something
scientist,
like that. And what that guy said was, I don't have to tell you, if you just keep this going for another generation or so, what the world's going to start looking like from there. So
absolutely. Well, bad things happen because you deserve them. Well, in this case, I mean, you've got to blame the politicians and you've got to blame parents.
Definitely. We need to take responsibility as the parents as well. Put those limits on the screen times. You have to manage how much your kids are consuming, because we're moving into a space of, well, it's not my fault. The schools aren't doing enough, or the internet's doing this. What are you doing as the parent? Because it starts in the household.
No one's going to do that for you.
Exactly. Take responsibility,
It's
parents.
not in the interests of Google, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or Snapchat to look after your child.
Exactly.
They would rather have your child married to the screen
Yes.
for the rest of their
They
lives.
will build an island inside a game so that you can fork out money for your child to wear a Gucci skin at the age of 3. And that is bizarre.
And then feed you more dark advertising.
So this dystopian update was brought to you by Flux Trends. No, Dion, it's always great to have you here. And there's a lot that I think many people have learned from this. People are saying, oh my God, how amazing. Where can we find out more? I've given your handle on social media, but perhaps you can just direct people to where exactly your report is in case they want to see it, particularly those parents who are going to be paranoid after this.
No, if you just go to fluxtrends.com, there's there's things you can sign up for. We call them little observations, and we send things out to weekly. It's just kind of what we discuss in the office, which I think is quite good. Because look, all of our work is for corporates and for big companies. So we try and put out what we discussed and what we like putting there, and what you came to was also like a public event where we show what the research is that we actually want to do and like as well. So
it was so informative.
Yeah,
It was like I've been to a lot of events, but that one I was like, I need this, and I invited the whole team to the next one. Every month you guys do something like that, and we need that.
Well, subscribe and go and check out the website. It's really worth it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dion. Always great to have you,
Dion.
and I hope we get some more info out of you very, very soon, because this has left people wanting more.
yeah, and if you want to know more about teenagers, we're your hub. And we're going to be launching a little tour later on so that we can understand what's in the brains of Gen Zs.
Nice.
If there's anything left.
Gareth.
All right, everybody. Have a happy day. We'll see you tomorrow at 6 a.m.